Hello and welcome back to another contact video. Uh, this one is going to be a little more different because there's a great number of things in the Shadowrun universe that are similar to other RPG settings, but yet drastically different. This video here, I'm going to be talking about the HMHVV and ghouls, and to a lesser extent, vampires and werewolves and that kind of thing, as they are similar to other RPG subjects, monsters and stuff, but the Shadowrun versions are different. Your ghoul here in Shadowrun is similar to a fantasy zombie or a fantasy ghoul, depending upon how much of a difference your particular setting has. Here in Shadowrun, there are two different various flavors of ghouls. Um, there is your feral ghoul, which is very much like your flesh-eating monster from your fantasy tropes. But then there is also your cognizant sapient ghouls. I don't know the correct word in that situation, but they are people who have contracted a virus that are sick. Their illness has brought a fairly significant change upon their body chemistry. They now hunger for the flesh of metahumans, and that is the only real way they can drive sustenance. But many of these people were just people that were in an unfortunate situation, got infected with something, and had their lives ripped away from them. But there are the people whose minds do not survive said transformation from whatever their metahuman metatype was into ghouls. And those are the ones that their minds snap and they go feral and are very much flesh eating monsters, for the lack of a better term. The Shadowrun ghoul situation is very, very similar to the Fallout ghoul situation, which I imagine a lot of people here are fairly familiar with. Only instead of the ridiculously long lives and radiation, you have the hunger to eat your friends. Um, as a result, there are a couple of things that have popped up about ghouls. In Chicago, there is a ghoul community that is kind of trying to survive. There are entire ghoul countries in Africa. I believe it's Asmodia. I'm not 100% sure on the specific thing. I should do research before I make these videos. And in our wonderful Seattle, there is the 162s, which are a gang that are all ghouls. They work out of the Redmond Barrens. They do a couple of different normal ghoul-related things. They work with Tanimus, which is more a I like to think of it as more a product of their situation than a we're bad guys. Tanimus, for those that don't know, and I really should find people to do lore-related videos with me. That'd be great because I know very little about the lore. Um, make most of their money on organ legging and cyberware thievery and that kind of shenanigans. Very unfortunate, messy businesses. The 162s get a secondary benefit of it, given as they have to eat metahuman flesh to survive. If they sell the cyberware that Tanimus wants to them, or via working with them, they get to have the wonderful fleshy bits afterwards. So there's a lot of, are they really bad guys? Are they people that are taking in people who get sick and would have nowhere else to go in the world? Are they the monsters that everybody thinks they are? And that is kind of where I went with the creation of Desmond here. You may notice if you watch my small actual play that I have out, Desmond Valentine is a lieutenant that the Ultraviolence had run into. So, as a ghoul ganger, what is their worth to a Shadowrunner team? Well, they'll have information on the various gang goings-ons. They will have a couple of things that can go a little bit more dark. As they survive on the flesh of metahumans, body disposal. It is an unfortunate thing that sometimes happens in our lovely criminal empires. That sometimes you need somebody to disappear in a way that they are not going to ever be found again. If you don't know a man that owns a bunch of pigs, ghouls are a pretty good other thing. A secondary aspect of their transformation into ghouls is they have a allergy to sunlight. So it's one of those situations of I can't really go out during the day, so I can hire out people uh, to do things for me during the day. If you have some bleeding hearts on your team of uh, they find some ghouls and they don't see them for the monsters that the trios portray them as, maybe it's someplace that they can bring these people, someplace where they may rejoin a semblance of normal life. Or if you have infected runners on your team, it's a it's a way that you can kind of hand wave how they get through their daily dietary requirements without going into the all right, go, let's make some rolls for you to hunt down a hobo and murder him brutally in the alleyway and then consume his flesh. To just kind of throw that off to the team. Um, there's also a couple of different things here that make it easier to introduce him to your team, given as he is part of a ghouls and a gang. If you have a magical threats related knowledge, if you have gangs related knowledge, when they're trying to do something that uh, a group such as the 162s would be interested in, they could, hey, I know of this. Let's go see if we can find them. I know their general turf. Let's take a drive down there and see what happens. That's what happened in my small actual play. They needed to find a pig, and technically, I believe there are ghouls. I believe Chicago has like a bunch of pig farms that they have set up because they can use the pig flesh to stretch their metahuman flesh larder. Um, so that is a way that you can, maybe you didn't really have a idea to introduce a ghoul angle to your game, but they're like, oh crap, we need to get rid of this body because we made an accident, and now you have a way that you can easily introduce Desmond or somebody similar like that. Um, so we come down here and just in the cast, Desmond was an orc. He is a ghoul. His male, his age is kind of indeterminate because when you go through a drastic body change like transforming into a ghoul, there are things that happen to you that kind of make things a little more awkward. Um, I do believe being a ghoul gives you immunity to age, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Double check with the rules. Um, part of being a ghoul is being bald, so that's also wonderful. Um, and he has some cyber eyes and has some minor social adept powers. He's like a lieutenant. He's kind of a front man for his little area of the 162s. But there is also the gang aspect of the thing. So yeah, you may know this one guy, but he knows a bunch of guys. So maybe some of these gang members were normal people before they became infected. So did they guy work as a plumber and find a HMHVV carrying devil rat that bit him, and is that how he got infected? Does he have some plumbing knowledge? Was somebody a doctor and they were doing some ghoul work out of the goodness of their heart to try and improve their lives, and they accidentally got infected? So there's a lot of different people that could be here just because they have nowhere else to turn. They're not interested in the gang or lifestyle, but when your option is be alone and hunted or be with people in a similar social situation, it's really easy to see where people would come to the 162s to kind of go forward with their life. Um, so the first one I have listed as mysteries because the sixth world is a scary world, and there's a bunch of different um, things that people don't understand, especially for your common wage slaves and stuff along those lines, where they're going to get what the Tridio tells them, and things like ghouls and blood magic and that kind of stuff is one of those things that they fear, especially some of the horror movies and that kind of stuff. And bad things happen. So a couple of different things that can happen to promote the mystery aspect of things is maybe you come across one of these people who got infected randomly. Is sorry, I got totally spaced there. Maybe they come across one of these people who is accidentally infected and is like, oh no, like what has befallen me. Maybe they just find somebody who was born a ghoul, because that is still a possibility. Like, you don't become infertile or second, or maybe you were just a ghoul your whole life. This is normal to you. Um, Being the kind of guy who is involved with um, both gangs, the shadows, and the whole ghoul society, that he's going to have a whole bunch of different information. Maybe maybe it's the ghoul that you found previously. Maybe it's a completely different ghoul where it's he's going to have an ear to the ground on this kind of thing, and maybe kind of twist the ear of the runners in a way of, hey, if you guys find out anything about a Aslan ghoul who's in the area but it seems to be on the run, let me know. Um, Part of the other aspect of things is also that since people don't really understand, there was at one time a pretty decent bounty out for hunting down ghouls. And maybe some people are still following that tradition, even though the bounty itself has been dropped pretty drastically. Um, so maybe there are some people around who not exactly liking ghouls in their area. Maybe it's just another gang that's trying to push them out of turf to take it over. And then, maybe some members go missing, and maybe there's a small cry from help. Maybe from the ghoul that they met previously, maybe from Desmond himself, maybe that strangled cry for help is actually a comm call that goes on while you hear a gunfight in the background. Remember that the idea of these fronts is to be ideas not written out in their entirety. So a strangled cry for help can mean a whole lot of things. And then I have down here is a purge the unclean. Maybe there is a group that is actually hunting to eradicate all ghouls. Maybe it's somebody who has gotten it in their head that the only way we can really stop HMHVV's spread is to kill everybody who has it. And that if we do that, the virus itself will die out and we won't have to worry about these monsters anymore. Who knows? Under Thug Life, remember that these guys are also a gang. And as a gang, you have certain responsibilities to other gang members, to your turf, and to represent yourself in a certain way. Um, Under the portents in here, I threw, my boss is riding my ass. Well, is that his direct boss? Like, if he's only a lieutenant, maybe the step above him and the gang leader. Maybe it's Tanimus. Maybe it's somebody he knows from the shadows. Maybe it could be a bunch of different things. Um, this also gives you a good way that if you, on a later run after introducing him, if they roll really good on a gang knowledge check or something related, uh, they might have a bunch of information that comes across to them that isn't direct, like they weren't doing something for the run with this information, but they come up with a bunch of information like, hey, you know what? I actually heard that this other gang was kind of had it out for them, or that there was some strife between them. So it's like, okay, what does that mean? Or you can lean straight into our internal strife thing that we have mentioned here of maybe there is Tanimus is coming down on them from the inside. Maybe Desmond doesn't really want to do the body selling thing. Maybe he is more interested in just the care for people that are in a similar situation to him, to just have something that resembles a normal life, and this is where he has found that. Or maybe he's getting ambitious and he wants to move up the chain. So it's the same idea, but one makes him look ambitious, one makes him look like a nice softie. Um, Moving a bunch of people who are walking biohazards can be really problematic. So at the very least, not transporting them during the day. Maybe they know that the rigger has a big old step van. It's like, hey, can you help us move some of our people around? They get attacked in the process. Maybe they need to clear out the new turf, and maybe some of what everything else that was here comes back to haunt them on the home defense aspect of things. For the home defense, or for the impending doom, I put home is where the heart is, and that can mean a great number of things. It could be physically, where is it that you're living, or could it mean he's like breaking away from the gang, but then ends up wanting to come back to the gang, or maybe it's one of those things of like, I just kind of want to leave this that whole life behind to go back to just focus on being normal. Maybe he found somebody within the gang that he has started a relationship with, and he just wants to leave the gang stuff away. Maybe that's part of where that strife and moving and home defense came from. Who knows? And then one of the other really important things to ghouls is sight. As part of the transformation into a ghoul, large cataracts will form over your eyes and you will go blind. You will gain the ability to see into the astral as part of the fairly standard uh, HMHPV infection. However, imagine if you could, your life afterwards consists of consuming metahuman flesh, and then everything that is not alive that you see is formless gray blobs. You can't even watch the Trid anymore. Like that's pretty terrible. However, ghouls are capable of accepting cyber eyes, which will allow them to restore their sight, which is a pretty big deal, especially if you're trying to help people adjust to this new lifestyle. So it's a pretty big motivator for ghouls. Um, However, if you're a street doc and you're making your money by um, installing cyber eyes into highly infectious individuals, maybe you don't get paid. Maybe something happens to him. Maybe he decides he's gotten a real job now and is moving on from just doing street dock work. Maybe his that street dock had a shadow runner who brought heat down on said street dock, and street dock has to lay low and can't work with the ghouls anymore. Kind of in there. Um, it also gives you a great way to reward loyalty. If you are a person in moderate power, like a gang lieutenant, and you have the needs of a bunch of people who are going to want to be able to see again, it's a pretty easy way to be like, all right, you do this work for me. I'll try and get you a set of eyes from some of the people I know, so we get you back to that kind of stuff. So maybe he had somebody who was next in line that he had to break a promise to about restoring the sight to. Maybe it's because the doctor left. Maybe it's because he had to sell the eyes that he was going to give this person to something else. Maybe it has nothing to do with eyes. Maybe it was a completely different promise to a completely different people. Um, then going into the body dumping side of things is like if you happen across him, maybe the doc won't work with him anymore. That line of uh, implant ingress has dried up, and then all of a sudden he's got to find another place. So it's like, hey, if you happen across anybody that's got eyes that you can get rid of, help me out here. And then my cat comes in and claws me in the leg. Um, the last one in here is like, oh, what did you bring me? So it's the body dumping business is a dangerous thing. Who knows when the Shadowrunners drop off a body what a person has seen in the last 24 hours of their cyber eye recording. And maybe somebody finds out that, hey, one of my employees who has seen some important documentation has gone missing, and then have uh, tracked them down, maybe through RFID tags, maybe through ownership of the cyber eyes, maybe through other shadow means and that kind of stuff, have found out that the guy that went missing with that potentially important information in his cyber eye recording was dropped off at these gangs. Maybe the gangs just find maybe the guy had a data lock and the gangs just find this data lock that's got crazy stuff and it's like, yo, I want nothing to do with this. Or maybe it's a person that was brought there and then it's somebody that Desmond recognizes. Maybe it's somebody in the mafia, maybe it's another gang member, that kind of thing. And then the impending doom here is the organ trade is a messy business. So maybe directly messy because of organs, maybe because of the politics involved, maybe because of the outside world involved. There's a lot of different ways that things can go horribly wrong for a somebody in this industry. Maybe that person you brought them one time worked for Tanimus. And all of a sudden, Tanimus is like, "Why are you bringing me a body of one of my people? And who brought you this body in the first place?" Um, Coming down here into the stakes. Will Desmond stay in his position? It's a it's a question of a bunch of different things. Will he stay with the gang? Will he move up? Will he move down? Will his relationship with Tanimus continue in the direction that the 162s typically do? Um, who will control the territory? Is through action in or inaction of your runners, is the 162s going to stay in control of the turf that they have? Is their turf control going to expand? Are they going to move to a different area as per one of the uh, portents here? And can you change the public perception of ghouls? This doesn't have to be the entire world's perception. This can be the Redmond Barons. This could be a smaller group of people that maybe live nearby that you have convinced to work together with them in some fashion. Do you want to make it worse? Because that is potentially a possibility. But that is kind of what I had in mind. I know that body mutilation stuff can be a little rough for some people. I probably should put a little bit of a warning on this one. Who knows? But thank you all for watching. If you have any questions or comments,